The fifth episode of The Rings of Power Season 1 is titled Partings. The episode begins in the Southlands, where the threat of Adar and his orc army looms ever closer. Bronwyn and Arendir, taking refuge in the old elf watchtower at Osterith, notice that their people are divided on how to respond. While Bronwyn urges them to stay and fight, a vocal minority, led by Waldreg, decides to surrender and join Adar. Waldreg even asks Theo to come with him, telling him that it's their time now. With Bronwyn looking on with a concerned expression, Waldreg and other Southlanders make their way towards Adar's camp. When Waldreg meets Adar, he declares that he has been waiting for this moment his entire life. However, he mistakenly calls him Sauron, which angers Adar. To prove his loyalty, Adar demands that Waldreg kill a fellow villager. With the other villagers looking on in horror, Waldreg, holding his blade, rushes towards the young boy before the scene cuts. Meanwhile, in Numenor, Galadriel, who has convinced Queen Miriel and the Númenórean people to sail to Middle-earth and aid the Southlanders in their fight against the growing darkness, makes plans with the Queen and Halbrand, who's been revealed to have a royal lineage. The Queen asks Halbrand where the Southlanders are likely to make their stand, and he quickly points to the Osterith watchtower. When the Queen mentions that his fellowship will be valuable upon their arrival, Halbrand appears surprised, as this is news to him. The Queen explains that Galadriel had informed her of his aspirations to unite his people, to which Halbrand replies, "Did she now?" Galadriel interjects that when the time comes, Halbrand will do his part, and the Queen responds, "I should hope so." After the Queen leaves, Galadriel tells Halbrand that she has convinced Numenor to send 5 ships and 500 men to aid the Southlanders and crown him king of the Southlands. Halbrand, however, tells her to crown someone else and walks away. As the Númenórean ships are about to set sail in the morning, Caiman, the Chancellor's son, tries to sabotage them by setting them on fire to force his father and the Queen to delay their departure for war. However, Isildur, hidden away on the ship Caiman targeted, intervenes. The two struggle, leading to an explosion that wrecks one of the ships. Isildur could have saved himself, but instead chooses to save Caiman and pulls him ashore. To protect Caiman, Isildur lies to his father, claiming that a cask must have exploded, causing the blast on the ship. This incident prompts Queen Miriel to call a council meeting. She tells Galadriel that it might be a sign and that the council will reconvene in the morning. She also instructs Galadriel to ensure that Lord Halbrand is present at the meeting, no matter the cost. Afterward, Galadriel talks to Halbrand, who remains reluctant to go to Middle-earth. Halbrand reveals that he has a troubled past and has done terrible things to ensure his and his people's survival. He fears that if anyone discovers this, they will quickly depose him as king. Galadriel apologizes for using him and tells him that the fate of his people now depends on him taking the journey to the Southlands. Galadriel's persistence and belief in him eventually persuade Halbrand to join the Númenórean forces as they set sail for Middle-earth. In Lindon, tensions rise between Elrond and High King Gil-galad. Elrond learns from the High King that the elves' light is fading, and the only thing that can save them now is the mithril discovered by the dwarves of Khazad-dûm. Both the king and Celebrimbor had sent Elrond to Khazad-dûm to secure the mithril, but Elrond had vowed to Durin not to reveal the existence of the precious metal. Celebrimbor apologizes to Elrond for not informing him sooner, explaining that the High King had forbidden him from revealing the plan. Elrond now faces an impossible choice: save his people by betraying his friend or upholding his oath to his friend. Accordingly, Elrond decides to tell Durin that the fate of the entire elven race rests in his hands. Durin eventually agrees to convince his father, King Durin III, to allow the elves to mine the mithril, as Elrond reveals that without it, the elves will be forced to abandon Middle-earth or perish. Meanwhile, the stranger continues to learn about their way of life from Nori. She teaches him about the dangers they face on their migratory journey, including predators like wargs. When the Brandyfoots reach the forest, they are attacked by a pack of wargs. Nori and the others run for their lives, but the wargs soon catch up with them. Just as they are about to be devoured, the stranger demonstrates his otherworldly power by easily scaring off the wargs. He flings them away by beating the ground with his fists, generating a strong gust of wind that sends the creatures flying, much to Nori's relief. However, his lack of control over his abilities also frightens Nori, who wonders if he might be one of the perils they face. As the end of the episode, the Númenórean ships set sail for Middle-earth, carrying Isildur, Galadriel, and Halbrand, now dressed as a lord, among others, to join the war in the Southlands. Their mission is to save the people there from impending doom, as time runs out for Bronwyn and the others at Osterith who can see the orc army approaching. This concludes the 5th episode of The Rings of Power Season 1. The 6th episode of The Rings of Power Season 1 is titled Udun. The episode begins with Adar planting a handful of Alpharin seeds in the dirt, whispering, "New life in defiance of death." We learn later in the episode from Arondir that it's a tradition among the elves to plant Alpharin seeds before a battle begins. Adar and his orc army, including the treacherous Waldreg, march on the Osterith watchtower, their torches illuminating the night. Adar rallies his troops, declaring that even though some of them will perish before the night is over, this time they will do so not as nameless slaves, but as brothers. As the orcs reach the tower's gate, Adar opens it, but they are surprised to find the courtyard deserted. When the orcs insist the tower is empty, Adar dismisses their claim, stating he can smell the elf nearby. Suddenly, Arondir emerges from behind a parapet, unleashing a barrage of arrows upon the orcs. With defenses already in place, he causes the tower's scaffolding to collapse, injuring many orcs in the process. He then secures the door with a heavy rock, hurling it down into the pit and trapping Adar's forces inside. Arondir leaps onto the bridge and escapes, seemingly sealing Adar and his forces beneath the rubble. The Southlanders witness this and cheer from their village, but Bronwyn knows the battle is far from over. Meanwhile, on the sundering seas, Númenor's ships glide through the night. Galadriel spots Isildur, who is out to catch the first glimpse of land with his eyes. Galadriel asks him his rank, and he is ashamed to admit his low rank as a stable sweep. Elendil comes and interrupts their conversation and sends Isildur away to work. Elendil then goes and reports to Queen Miriel that they are a day's sail up the river and another day's ride to the Southlands, and she urges them to make haste. In the Southlands, Arondir attempts to destroy Sauron's hilt, but finds it seemingly indestructible. Frustrated, he decides to conceal the hilt in a secret location, refusing to disclose it even to Bronwyn. Meanwhile, as the villagers set traps for the oncoming orcs, Bronwyn arrives to tend to Arondir's wounds, and they share a tender kiss. After receiving encouragement from Arondir, who assures them that if they fulfill their duties, they will witness another sunrise, Bronwyn then directs the fighters to their positions and assigns Theo to safeguard the tavern alongside the women and children. She hands him a spear, instructing him to protect them from the orc invaders. As the second wave of the orc attack hits, Bronwyn hurls a flaming cart at the orcs, setting several of them ablaze. The battle commences with Arondir, unleashing arrows from atop a house onto the invading orc forces. Amidst the chaos, an orc scales the roof and knocks Arondir down. Arondir manages to kill the orc, but a massive, imposing orc breaks through the fray and advances towards him. Although Arondir stabs the orc in the eye, the orc's sheer size and strength overpower him. Pinning him down, the orc prepares to strike Arondir when Bronwyn arrives just in time. She drives her sword through the orc's chest, saving Arondir from certain death. However, Arondir soon realizes that the attacking force consists mostly of humans disguised as orcs, not the actual orc army. This becomes apparent when a barrage of arrows begins to rain down, one of which hits Bronwyn. Arondir swiftly orders everyone to fall back to the tavern, carrying Bronwyn in his arms. The orcs break through the tavern, and Adar begins to systematically kill the villagers, holding Arondir hostage and demanding to know where he's hidden the hilt. When Adar orders the orcs to kill Bronwyn next, Theo, driven by love for his mother, reveals the hilt's location to Adar. Adar seizes the hilt and escapes, leaving the orcs to massacre the remaining survivors. However, the tide of battle shifts dramatically when the Númenórean cavalry, led by Galadriel and Elendil, arrives. They charge into the village, swords and spears clashing with the orcs' weapons. In the fierce combat that ensues, the Númenórean soldiers overwhelm the orcs, killing most and capturing the rest as prisoners. After the battle, Galadriel sets out to chase down the fleeing Adar. Halbrand, seeing Galadriel in pursuit, immediately follows after her. The chase leads them through the rugged terrain, with Galadriel and Halbrand galloping on horseback, determined to capture the elusive Adar. Adar weaves through the trees and rocky outcroppings, using his intimate knowledge of the land to try and evade his pursuers. At one point, Adar's horse is knocked out from under him by Halbrand's well-aimed throw of his spear. As Adar tumbles to the ground, Halbrand rides up, his spear now pointed directly at the fallen orc leader. Halbrand stands over Adar and asks him if he remembers who he is. Adar simply replies, "No," seemingly unaware of any past connection between them. This response seems to infuriate Halbrand, who raises his spear, ready to deliver a killing blow. However, Galadriel intervenes, stopping Halbrand and reminding him that they need Adar alive for questioning. Afterward, Galadriel and Halbrand bring the captured Adar to a barn, where Galadriel begins to interrogate him. She confronts Adar, acknowledging that he is a corrupted elf who once served Morgoth and was the first of the orcs. Adar corrects her, stating that he is one of the Uruk, a more advanced breed of orc. He then makes a startling claim, that after Morgoth's defeat, Sauron devoted himself to healing Middle-earth, bringing the ruined lands together in perfect order. Adar goes on to say that Sauron sought to craft a power not of the flesh, but in the unseen world. However, Adar claims that there was a shadow of dark knowledge that Sauron could not uncover despite the lives sacrificed, including Adar's children. In a shocking turn of events, Adar declares that he split open Sauron and killed him. Galadriel reacts with skepticism, unwilling to accept that Adar could have overcome the Dark Lord. In another twist, it is revealed that what Adar escaped with was not Sauron's hilt, but merely a weapon. He had cunningly entrusted the hilt to Waldreg, who had then plunged it into the rock at Ostirith Watchtower. As soon as he does that, a rumbling in the earth starts to occur. Suddenly, the river erupts, overflowing the bridges and rushing down the mountain. Geysers explode throughout the village, and water crashes through crude tunnels, leading to a cavern filled with angry red lava deep within the mountain. As the water pours into the cavern, it triggers a volcanic eruption, sending fireballs through the air and crashing into the village as everyone runs for their lives. This concludes the 6th episode of The Rings of Power Season 1.